with some sensitive creatures, it's a recipe for disaster, and those fish might even last 24 hours because of it. Because once you stress out your fish, it can be a spiraling experience. Some fish can get through the stress period a little bit better than others, but in general you have to assume that all your fish are on the edge. Some big fish will take very unkindly to being taken from one water system and thrown into another. So the way we normally do it is we get a container, put the container under the aquarium, then we put our fish into the container, and we use a little bit of air line. We put a gentle knot in it, or we use a valve, an air valve, and we drip water into the bowl from the tank for 20 minutes to half an hour. If this doesn't suit you, get the bag, open it up, let it float around the tank, and add water for 20 minutes to half an hour into the bag. And the important thing is, try and double or treble the volume of water in the bag in that time. This gives the fish a chance to adjust to its new pH. It's not a sure shot way of doing it, but it's the best of a bad lot. You can be sure that it takes about 6 weeks for a fish to get used to a new water quality, and in this period is when we have all our little mishaps. But I find, and many of my staff members will verify this, that's why some of them, like Drew, would go through Drew would over acclimatise the fish. He'd leave the fish sitting under the tank filling up for maybe an hour, and I find, to be honest, over 15 years I found that method the most reliable. And I mean, sometimes our fish would, like, they'd be up and feeding within 20 minutes going into the tank, whereas the other way, I mean, fish might suffer and cower in the corner for days after bad acclimatization. But anyway, 30-minute period is roughly 30 minutes out in the water should be enough for most fish species, and this goes for corals, this goes for shrimp, particularly shrimp. This also goes for things like bala sharks. Any of the sharks species like to be acclimatized very slowly, because a very sure way of killing bala sharks is just to dump them into a different water system. While we're doing our acclimatization, make sure, especially if you have a shoal of fish in that bag, i.e. a dozen neons or 2 dozen neons, make sure they do not smother. So get yourself an air stone and an air pump and put the air stone into the bag to keep the water circulating and oxygenate it, because I found that shoals of fish being acclimatized do not last very long, especially when you go away for a cup of tea and you come back and you're wondering why everything is dead. But an air stone will sort that out. Also, I mean, quarantine. I think personally all quarantine for fish should be done by the fish buyer, i.e. the customer. It's not feasible in most people's shops. It's a misnomer. Some people reckon they quarantine their fish for a week to 2 weeks. We used to have a whole quarantine facility, but as soon as a fish is taken, put it in a bag, stressed out, handed to you, mishandled, brought home, and the whole stress factor and the whole lowering of an immune system starts over again. And you have to understand that all fish carry parasites. The thinning of their mucus layer due to stress of bad handling is normally a trigger for parasites to take hold. So I tell my customers, it's great if you have a quarantine tank, brilliant, put your fish into that quarantine tank for 6 weeks, because it's normally 6 weeks is the quarantine period for fish. I mean, on the basis that your water quality in that tank is good, I would